Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you today? I hope you all fine. We are from a group 2 for sociolinguistic presentation. We're going to present some new material, but before we begin, I want to introduce my member. So we are from a group 2 for sociolinguistic presentation, and this is my member. My name is ROZAN ibn MUAMMAR TIFA, and then there is MAULIDA FORTUNA UZMA and NURUL FAHIMAH. Before we begin to our discussion, let's talk about meetings. What can happen? This is the very common question. Let's talk about meeting first. When we cross into different world and deal with a different culture, amazing thing can happen. All of us are changed by the people that we encounter, and the same goes for language. But how we need to speak with someone who doesn't speak the same language? We meet different language, meet each other. That's when the real magic happens. People really get around. Maybe they have stuff want to buy and sell, or important places they want to visit. Maybe they're seeking refuge from a war or disaster, or maybe they're a conquering army on the search for new territory, or maybe they just want to see what's beyond the horizon, find some fantasy land to live in. But the odds are, when you go somewhere new, you're going to find other people, like a new tribe or maybe alien. We're almost unbelievably good at populating places, even if they're a cold place, a very warm places, or place that's hard to find. So what happens when you arrive somewhere and you meet a group of people who haven't even heard of your language? If you want to stick around for a while, you're going to find some way to talk to each other. But where do you even start when you don't have any words in common? It's not like you have a magic spells to ease communication. Well, maybe you'll start with a simple gesture, or maybe body language, or learn a few of each other's word for things. But soon enough, if you have a community that springs up without a shared language, you'll get a way of talking that's woven together from a different strands that make it up. That kind of system is called Pidgin and Creoles. So let's begin to our discussion. The first discussion will be presented by MAULIDA FORTUNA UZMA.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is MAULIDA FORTUNA UZMA. I will to tell you about lingua franca. Lingua franca is a language used for communication between speakers of different native language. The lingua franca is used as facility for people who want to communicate with each other but have a different native language, so they use that language. And the next is example situation of when lingua franca is necessary. The first is there are many languages spoken in particular area or amongst different ethnic groups, so they need a language to communicate. And the second, there is trade between two different countries that have no common language. And the last, at a professional conference from experts from different countries who have different native language. For example, when a businessman for China, for example, and he went to do a conference with a businessman from Arabic, so to communicate, they use English as the lingua franca. English is the current largest lingua franca. English has been used by the international community as a means of communication in trade, science, politics, and other fields. And another example of national lingua franca is in Pakistan. There are various different languages spoken such as Pashto, Balochi, Sindhi or Punjabi, and the other, but Urdu is the national language is used as the lingua franca between those different groups. And another similar situation is in the Philippines, where they have two lingua franca. They have Tagalog and English, and those are used as the lingua francas between people from different regions of the country. For example, there is a region where Ilocano is the main language and meet someone from Bisaya, so they probably use the national lingua franca, which is Tagalog or English, or use both of them. But if in a region where Ilocano is the main language, this region also has many local languages, and if someone meets in this region, they probably use that local language as the lingua franca. So the lingua franca you use depends on who you are speaking to. If you speak to someone in your region, you can understand them, use that regional lingua franca. If you speak to someone from different region, use the national lingua franca. Lingua franca basically it means speak the language that help you communicate with that person the best. And the next slide. So whether Indonesian is a lingua franca, I think it might not or has not been formalized, but currently Indonesian has met the requirement to become a lingua franca. The first requirement is that Indonesian language has more than 300 billion speakers worldwide. And the second, Indonesia is not only used in one country but in several ASEAN countries such as Malaysia, Singapore, Timor-Leste, and Thailand. And the third, Indonesian is a language that is easily learned by foreigners. And the last, language can become an international language if it is supported by politically, socially, and economically. The Indonesia economy is currently relatively stable. Even so, according to Badan Pengembangan dan Pembinaan Bahasa Kemendikbud, Mr. Dadang Sunendar said one of the obstacles to making Indonesian as a lingua franca is the attitude of some Indonesians who do not respect and proud to use Indonesian. In addition, there are still many people who consider the function of the Indonesian language only as means of communication. In fact, Indonesian is the national identity as a bright and unifying tools, unifying us from Sabang to Merauke, a means of communication for central and regional relations, including in cultural sector. And I think enough for me, and the next will be explained by NURUL FAHIMAH.
Okay, it's my turn. Pidgin language. Pidgin language is a grammatically simplified means of communication where two languages come together. So, for example, when two or more groups of people meet together in a situation, then they are in different languages, and there is no common language between the groups. So they will create a pidgin language to interact or to communicate. And then the next is characteristics. The characteristics of pidgin language first is no native speaker. So pidgin language is used or learned for a second language because it is not native language of any speech community. When it developed through a process of nativization, it's not pidgin anymore. And then the next is mixing of language. People who create a pidgin language will mix the language creatively, and they will combine the language one language to other language, so it will be more effective for communication. And then the next is reduce grammar and vocabulary. Pidgin may be built from words and sounds. So, the words they use will be limited to core vocabulary. As the point before that, mixing of language, the people who create Pidgin will mix the language and acquire new or additional meaning to make the word with only a specific meaning. So it makes people more understand. So it will make the people understand more. The next is the origin of Pidgin. The origin of Pidgin or the historical of Pidgin. Chinglish or Chinese Pidgin English is originated as a lingua franca trading between the British and Chinese. It originated as a Chinese mispronunciation of the English word business, and Pidgin English spread north to Shanghai. So Chinglish or Chinese Pidgin English is from a situation or tragedy that in 1839 to 1842 that China and Britain in a Opium War or First and Second War. Chinese Pidgin English usage began in the late 19th century when China and missionary school began teaching standard English. And from that beginning in 1982, finally China made English the main foreign language in education. So from that history, Pidgin English, we can conclude that Pidgin language is created in a situation that such as trading or business, then slavery and colonization. And then the last is the example of Pidgin. First is English talk Pidgin. Talk Pidgin is from Papua New Guinea. The sentence is "Leg belong you heal right gain," means your leg will get well again. And then the next is English and Hawaii. What for Miss Willis laugh all time, before Bella cry all time, means that why does Miss Willis often laugh? Bella used to always cry. And then the last is Solomon Island Pidgin. It's from South Pacific Pidgin English. The sentence is "Me no look picky pig belong you," means that I didn't see your pig. I think that's all. The next will be presented by my partner.
Here we go again, back to me again, ROZAN IBNU. Now I will explain you about Creole language. A Creole is often defined as a pidgin that has become the first language of a new generation of speakers. Creole are a full-fledged natural language. Jadi Creole itu adalah bahasa alami yang lengkap. So pidgin have no native speakers, right? They arise because the need for lingua franca, but If that language survives and becomes the native language of the next generation, then it's now called a Creole language. Jadi kalau Pidgin itu bisa bertahan sampai generasi berikutnya, maka itu disebut Creole. Dan Creole akan berkembang terus, ya, mulai dari misalnya vokabularinya, strukturnya, dan bisa menjadi bahasa baru. Next slide. The origins of Creoles. Next, I want to talk about the origin, ya. Awalnya ya, awal mulanya ya. Jadi, apakah kamu tahu tentang perbudakan? Ya, dulu biasanya banyak terjadi ya saat era penemuan dunia baru, ya. Masa-masa kayak yang di film Pirates of Caribbean, ya, dimana Eropa itu menguasai Amerika, Afrika, Asia, dan Pasifik lewat jalur bisa jalur perdagangan maupun jalur kolonial ya, penjajahan dulu. Ya, biasanya itu Inggris atau Portugis. Slaves ya, perbudakan, slave from several different countries are working closely together on a plantation, but they have no common language. Jadi budak-budak dulu biasanya disuruh untuk kerja paksa ya di perkebunan. Ya, tapi mereka itu kalau berkomunikasi itu tidak memiliki bahasa yang sama untuk berkomunikasi, berbeda-beda. Bahkan yang jajah aja nggak tahu bahasanya penduduk lokal itu. So they develop their Pidgin, and it quickly becomes their expanded Pidgin, the language they use for all everyday purpose. Their children grow up in that environment with that Pidgin language, and it becomes the native language. That is now the Creole language, we can call it. In the days when African slaves were brought to the America, they were often separated from people who spoke the same native language. Ya. Jadi orang-orang yang bisa berbahasa yang bahasanya sama ya, budak-budak itu kan beda-beda ya bahasanya. Yang bahasanya sama itu dipisah biar satu perkebunan itu orang yang bisa bicara dengan native language itu sedikit lah ya, jadi beda-beda. Nah, itu untuk menghindari rebelling ya, untuk pemberontakan ya. That was to prevent them from rebelling or from making plans together, that kind of things, to take down the colonial army or make a rebel. So in this kind of situation, the Pidgin language became expanded very quickly, and it within one generation sometimes became Creoles. It's not only slavery for the factor for Creole. There are so many examples like marriage. Yeah, marriage. It's not many. It's not so many, but yeah, the one of the factor is marriage too. Pernikahan. This is the pictures, the picture example for slavery in that era. This plantation. This is explain how cruel this world and how the language is expanded. The language is developed well. Until now, there is so many languages around the globe with so many style, dialect, or something like that. Yeah. Next is the characteristic of Creole language. We know that Creole is from Pidgin that developed well and Pidgin adopted as the native language. Then nativization is when Pidgin passed into a new generation and become a mother tongue which is acquired by children. Jadi anak lahir ya, tumbuh bersama orang tuanya ya. Contohnya nih ya, yang memiliki Pidgin ya. Dia tumbuh bersama orang tuanya yang memiliki Pidgin. Nah, orang tuanya itu memiliki bahasa yang berbeda-beda. Ibunya dan bapaknya itu berkomunikasinya berbeda-beda ya. Sehingga anaknya itu ya bisa belajar bahasa ibunya dan bahasa bapaknya. Dan itu menemukan vocabulary baru ya, atau cara berkomunikasi yang baru ya, menggunakan bahasa yang baru. Sehingga dalam satu generasi itu Creole itu bisa menjadi native language. Often classified as English friend base. Yeah, speech become faster, then the expansion of morphology and phonology and syntax are enhancement. Next slide. Creolization. Creolization is a process where a pidgin expanded in structure and vocabulary in order to express the range of meaning and serve the range of function required of a first language. Jadi kreolisasi adalah proses di mana pidgin diperluas ya dalam struktur dan kosakata untuk mengekspresikan jangkauan makna ya, suatu makna baru ya, dan menyajikan berbagai fungsi yang dibutuhkan dari bahasa pertama. So there are the expand in morphology like I said before. So there are the expand in morphology and syntax and phonology tendency, increasing the functionality of using Creole, then the development of a rational and stable system for vocabulary enhancement. Jadi ada perluasan morfologi dan sintaks, ya, kecenderungan phonology ya, speech of sound ya, phonology tendency ya. Terus ada peningkatan fungsi penggunaan bahasa Creole. Kemudian pengembangan sistem yang rasional dan stabil ya, juga untuk peningkatan kosakata ya, vocabulary. In practice, it is not always easy to say whether we have a pidgin rather than a Creole, you know. For example of Creoles, yeah. Some Creole are based on English, for example, Jamaican Creole. Some Creole based on French, including Haitian Creole, which has 12 native speakers. And the smaller number of Creole are based on Spanish, including Cavacano in the Philippines. Now, how different are these Creole language from their parent language? Let's take a look for the example. This example is from Bislama, which is an English space spoken in Vanuatu. Let's take a look for the first sentence. The first sentence is, "This is my house." In Bislama, "Hamya house belong me." Or in more standard English phonology, "Him here house belong me." And for another example sentence, "I have already been to town." In Bislama, "Mi bin long taon finish." And in more standard English phonology, "Mi bin long time finish." So look at each word. Yeah, me is like I, saya, and then bin that self-explanatory, and long is very weird. Long is used as a preposition here. Yeah, long is used as a preposition here instead of adjective. So long means towards or to. And then we have taon. It's like town, yeah. Town, kota, yeah. And finish is used instead of already to show that something has been accomplished. So again, yeah, you can see that the words are from English, yeah. You can see that the words are from English, but they are used and arranged in a very different way. And this is what makes it different language than the parent language. Jadi dari contoh itu ada beberapa kata yang dari bahasa Inggris. Katanya itu sama ya, tapi memiliki makna dari penggunaan yang berbeda lah, makna dan penggunaan yang berbeda. Next, the difference between Pidgin and Creole. So as NURUL said before, Pidgin have no native speakers and Creole have native speakers. Pidgin have a limited range of use, ya, terbatas ya Pidgin itu, nggak sampai bisa menjadi bahasa baru. But Creole have considerably expanded range of use. Ya, bisa, kalau Creole itu bisa dikembangkan, kalau Pidgin itu enggak. Jadi Pidgin itu adalah bahasa yang dikembangkan membentuk Creole lah, ya. Dan Creole itu bisa berkembang lagi dari bahasa baru, walaupun itu menjadi native language, itu bisa dikembangkan lagi, terus ya. dan fungsi-fungsinya juga bisa bertambah. And then Pidgin typically evolve out of context situation, and Creole evolve of a Pidgins. Nah, jadi Pidgin itu berevolusi dari situasi tertentu ya, konteks situasi tertentu lah. Kalau Creole itu berevolusi keluar dari Pidgin. Ya. Intinya itu ya. Now, well, it's almost done for this video. Well, we can conclude that Pidgin and Creole are fascinating because they are proof that languages are living entities. They are constantly changing. Languages are constantly changing and adapting to the needs of their speakers. Sometimes two or more languages can even join forces and take on life of their own as a new language. Jadi bahasa itu dapat berubah dan beradaptasi dengan kebutuhan penuturnya ya. Terkadang dua atau lebih bahasa bahkan dapat bergabung juga itu dan menjalani kehidupannya sendiri sebagai bahasa baru. Okay, I think it's enough for my group. We are from group 2. My name is ROZAN IBNU and my member MAULIDA FORTUNA UZMA and NURUL FAHIMAH. We can say thank you for watching. Thanks for watching, and if you have any question, you can drop the comment below, or you can ask the question in the meetings. Okay? Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.